And today we're going to work on a little painting for a demonstration for a class that I'll be teaching in February. And since this is a beginning watercolor series, we will work on painting a simple watercolor. And we're going to do this this little wave that I did a sketch of earlier. And we'll be using a limited palette. And that limited palette is 9 colors. And they are Payne's Gray, Ultramarine, Phthalo Blue. Those are your 2 blues. And a lemon yellow and a nickel azo yellow, which you see right here. Chinese Orange by Sennelier, a burnt sienna, a pyro red or bright red if you're using Sennelier, and quinacridone magenta, which is a Turner color. Actually, it's PR 122, and that's going to be our palette for this class. We are going to start by taking my large mop brush, which is the Da Vinci Cosmo Top, and we will wet the entire page. Let's move that over a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to start up, we're going to mix a nice mixture of ultramarine, which I'm going to gray just a little bit using the burnt sienna. We'll just put a little burnt sienna out there. And that should give us a nice softer blue. Now, if I wasn't using a limited palette, I'd be using cerulean blue or cobalt, which is one of my favorite colors. But since we are using, let's do a little more blue in that, because we are using a limited palette, we're gonna see if we can get away with doing this. And because I want the sky soft, we're gonna water it down considerably, and we want to leave some clouds in the sky, so we will just do that. And I think we'll make our horizon line. You don't ever want your horizon line in the middle of the page, so I think we'll make our horizon line about here. And that's going to make a nice sky. And now to make the clouds, we're going to take paper towel, but this is Viva. And the reason we use this paper towel is because it has no markings on it, so it's not going to give you a pattern like this paper towel would. So we're just going to bunch that up, and we're going to dab while it's wet and see if we can get some clouds. And this is very subtle because our wash is so light, but we kind of want those wispy kind of clouds like that. Maybe right along the horizon line. I like that. And now we're going to make this a slightly different blue. So we'll go back to the ultramarine. That mixture we already made. Let's add the tiniest bit of phthalo blue and see what we get. It's going to be really a gorgeous color there. And that's going to be our deep water. And as you can see, this is granulating because of the ultramarine, which is going to be just a gorgeous effect for the water. And I'm going to put this in very loosely because we want some places in the water where the highlights are going to be. And our wave is going to come from down here and it's gonna crest probably about there and then come off here and wash down into here. So you can't really, you're not gonna be able to see that until we actually get it in there with the darker colors. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop some green down in here. And to get that green, we're gonna take our lemon yellow. And we already had a little bit of that ultramarine there. Get kind of a bright green for our underneath our wave here. And when waves form, this is the kind of motion they have, which is curling up like this. So we'll kind of follow the shape of the wave there. And let's soften that a little bit. Put a little green in the distance there. And a little green up in here. Make that a little more believable. And the fun thing about doing this kind of a simple painting is you really can't make a mistake. There are really no mistakes. You can just play around with it and have some fun. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dry this, and then we'll go in and add some more the darks and create our wave. Okay, we're back, and I dried this. I also added masking fluid. I decided I want this, the crest of the waves to be lighter. So I added some Daniel Smith masking fluid. And it's not quite dry, but we're gonna go ahead with it anyway because we're gonna work on this dark part of the wave. Now normally underneath here I would use a Prussian blue. But since we have a limited palette, we're going to have to make a Prussian blue. So we will do this with the ultramarine. Add a little bit of Payne's Gray so we get a really dark, beautiful color. Payne's Gray is a wonderful modifying color. It's a dark, but it has a lot of a blue undertone to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start, and we're going to make this a bit uneven if we can here, and then we're going to drag it down because the motion of the wave is going to be this motion. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and wet the bottom down here so that we have a soft line coming in here and we don't get any hard edges like we were starting to get right there. So we're just going to wet this whole thing. Now we'll take and punch in this really dark color right along the edge here, and that should bleed on down like this. It's fun to use a limited palette. It's a bit more of a challenge, but it's very good experience, especially if you're a beginner, or really for anyone. All right, now I'm going to go back over our ocean one more time. So let's clean this palette out. And this, by the way, is a little palette by Magello, which is just a wonderful little travel palette, or if you're a student, you're taking classes, because it's sealed. So you can actually just close it up and go without worrying about it dripping all over everything when you transport it. So let's get back up here with our ultramarine again. And this time we're going to add a little yellow to it and get a green, more of a green for our ocean. So let's stick our lemon yellow in there. Okay, and that is way too bright of a green, so. Now, when you have a situation like this, there are one of two things you can do. You can add more ultramarine, which we will do. And you can see you lose a certain amount of that yellow. And the other thing you can do is to add water, and it will make it very much lighter. So let's try that. And we're just going to go over the entire thing again. And a horizon line, it's good to have a horizon line that's straight. If you use tape, it looks almost too artificial if you're not careful. So I'm going to give this a minute. I'm going to make up some more green, a brighter green for down here. Because in this little sketch that I did, as you can see, we've got a lot of greens going on, and I kind of like that look. So in order to make a green, of course, you use your blue and your yellow. And it all depends on how much of each that you use. And if you contaminate your yellow like I just did, all you have to do is stick your paper towel in there, and that takes care of it. So there we have that. I'm going to use that in a moment. And while you're waiting for this to dry, you can be mixing your colors. Normally what I do when I'm actually doing a painting is I have several going at one time. And that way you can be working on one while the other is drying. And that's just a habit that I've gotten into. It makes you very productive, and it really gives you a perspective. When you leave this for a little while and you come back to it, you can see it differently. And I tell you another little thing that I often, well, I always do it, is I take photographs of my painting at the different stages. Because for some reason, if I'm sitting here working on this, I can't see my mistakes. But if I take a photograph and look back, I just use my phone, and if I look back on it, I can see the mistakes, just they're blatant when you look at a photograph of your artwork. So I would suggest you do that. If that's not something you're in a habit of doing. Okay, we're going to make this darker, so we're going to get back in the Payne's Gray. And you see me dipping right into these wells. If you do that, you have to be really careful and just use the very tip of your brush. And if you do contaminate a paint to the point where you can't just dip it out, all you have to do is spray it with water and then take your paper towel and it comes right out. So that's ready. And we're almost dry enough for that. I don't normally use a hairdryer. I just wait. So if I've got something drying, I just work on the other painting or go do something else, and then I come back and it's dry. And that I find works best for me. But in this case, because we're a little bit pressed for time, I'm going to stop this and make sure this is dry. And I'm back. I decided to go ahead and add some white gouache just to make the sparkles in the waves to make it more believable. And I adjusted the whites a little bit to make it to look more three-dimensional. And there you have it. So you do have the option, if you did not use masking fluid in the beginning, you can come in later with white gouache.